Well, I think the GERS stats, as they've shown for a number of years, show the strength of Scotland's underlying fiscal position. Firstly, over a 5-year period, Scotland would have been £8 billion better off standing on its own 2 feet than as part of the UK. That's about £1,600 for every man, woman and child in the country. And we could have invested more in the economy, we could have borrowed less, which would have been a good idea, or combined the two, or used in a stabilisation fund the great years to make sure you can cope with years when things are less good, for example, in terms of oil revenues. So these figures show the underlying strength of the Scottish economy. They show what would have happened with Scotland as part of the UK, but will be even stronger when we're running our own finances and can grow our economy for the future. It'd be far, far better if we control our own economy and our own society, so we can put that strong position to use. We can build a more prosperous economy, certainly, but also have a more just society. Look, we know from this week's economic statistics that Scotland would become the 14th most prosperous country on earth if we're independent. Nobody can seriously argue that number 14 in the world, a world of 200 countries or so, can't be independent. That the challenge for us is to demonstrate that that independence, using the strength of our natural resources, the ingenuity of our people, will lead to a prosperous economy, certainly, but also a better society. We demonstrate that, we win the referendum. Both offshore and onshore, the figures look worse this year, but they're investments for the future. Offshore, because the oil companies invested in 2012 £14 billion, £14,000 million in new oil production. Now, obviously that reduces revenues this year because it offsets against tax, but it increased revenues in 2 or 3 years' time, as night follows day. So that's an investment in the future. Investment in their future, obviously, because they're not doing it for the good of our health, they're doing it to make profits, but also more revenues for the government in 2 or 3 years' time. Luckily, we're independent in 2 or 3 years' time. Secondly, something we've done as a government, a deliberate decision by the Scottish Government to emphasise capital investment. So while the current balance is the same as the UK, our capital investment has been much higher. Now people say, why did you do that? Well, you do that to resist recession. And the benefits from that in the new railways and the roads and the new bridges that are being built in Scotland and the new hospitals and new schools, you get in the longer term. So although there hasn't been a huge splurge in capital investment because of Westminster cutbacks, we've been investing much more in capital in the rest of the UK, and that capital investment will pay off in the longer term. So both onshore and offshore, we've been investing for the future, and Scotland's future is an independent one.